Welcome to episode 4 as I look at the powers of Mary Magdalene along with the goddess Inanna and her gates. This week we are going to be talking about craving for death. And this week's trigger warning is brought to you by self-harm. So if that's an issue for you, just be aware. So craving for death is anything that we do to ourselves, which is ultimately harming us. It could be eating too much. It could be staying engaged in stress. Things that will cause us harm, particularly within the physical body and our physical world. I feel like this power, more than any of the others that we've looked at so far, is very much rooted in the physical realm. Some of the others we looked at have been internal work or spiritual work. This one to me sits very firmly in the day-to-day. And when we look at that through the lens of Inanna's fourth gate, her fourth gate is all about self-confidence, self-empowerment, self-esteem. And these things to me are linked in the way in which we engage in these self-harming activities when the self-confidence and the self-esteem are low. It's the ego's way of driving the train again. And instead of us dealing with the issue of the fact that we're feeling bad about ourselves or feeling bad about our lives, or we don't have that self-confidence, or just that our fiery energy is a little bit low, in sneaks in sneaks the craving for death. And so we're like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that this is going to cause me ultimate harm in the short term. This is giving me what I feel I need. And it's all very subconscious and it's not intentional. But we are doing it because that part of care that we need to have for ourselves is missing. And so we begin to mistreat our own cells and our own body and not listen to what we really need, but we're listening to what we want. Firmly in what we want. If this power were a tarot card, it would be the devil. And the devil is not so interested in what your needs, what you really need. It's about what you really want. And so this power is very much linked to that. When we look at Inanna and the fourth gate, I love the term sacred sexuality, and I included it in Feel Your Chakras Oracle. And some people don't know what that means, but to me, it is such an empowering energy because it is that love for self and that passion within yourself and celebrating yourself in that way that we think about sex between two people, but it's within yourself and with the divine, right? And a lot of the practices, when we look at the religious practices back in the time when Inanna was a celebrated goddess, were around sexuality, and that is how they kind of like expressed their love for their goddess. And that is so empowering, and it creates this self-confidence of body and this overall feeling of love for self. And so when we look at craving for death, those two things really cannot sit in the same moment, right? So by embodying Inanna's self-confidence and self-love, and we can combat this ego side of craving for death just by pulling in that piece. As I've been working with this energy, today, right before I was filming this video, I did my morning reading with Krista over at Crochet Witch Tarot, and it was my day, and I pulled from the Cantigee Oracle, and I'm going to insert an image of the card here that I pulled, and I felt it was really related to this energy. And the card that I pulled was the Unburdened Bones. And I feel like a way to really get to grips with this in the physical world is to almost think of coming back to our bare bones, right? And then bringing in the stuff that nourishes us and releasing the stuff that doesn't, right? And kind of embodying this cloak of self-confidence, of self-love, of every single part of ourselves in order to bring in that piece of self-care. And of course, we are still working with the ignorance piece in self-awareness, in knowing when we're choosing choosing the path of craving for death, or we choosing the path of self-confidence and self-embodiment and self-esteem. So this week, let's look at that. Let's look at that, the unburdened bones, the bringing in things that nourish us and releasing the things that don't. And also that piece of embodying self-confidence, sacred sexuality, self-esteem, and releasing those feelings of lack of self-worth and self-punishment. When things aren't going right, are we in turn kind of like abusing our own physical environment or our physical body? Or are we keeping those as two separate things and are able to keep our self-esteem and our self-confidence intact while taking the kind of the hit from the outside world, right? So those are just a couple of things to think about. And I will see you next week. Let's see what next week's power is. And next week, we're going to be looking at the fifth power, enslavement to the physical body, which seems very much linked to this one, but we shall see. We'll see what the difference is. I will see you then.